Hey there. Just checking to make sure I'm on. Awesome. I'm just getting everything opened up, so it'll be just a second. Okay. Okay, is this showing up on there? Hmm. There we go. Okay, so who here has actually made a comic or is planning to work on a comic at some point? That's awesome. Well, I will say making a comic is a lot of fun, which is one reason I do it, but it's also a lot of work, which is one reason I sometimes hate doing it. I've actually worked on several different comics over the years. Um, right now, what I've got pulled up, and you're getting to kind of see a little preview of it here, is an upcoming. I'm redoing my very first issue of a comic from, I would say, about 16 years ago. So the original is, it no longer exists anywhere on the internet, as far as I've been able to find, which makes me happy. uh, this version is going to be much better because I've learned a lot since the first time I made a comic. And I'm just going to go through all the basics of the process, and then I can delve into a little bit about various tools that will make it easier. The program I'm currently using is called Clip Studio. I really recommend this one for comic making, mostly because it's got a really cheap version. It's usually on sale for $49. for the full license, and that version is great for making comics with. Mine will look a little different if you have Clip Studio from the PC version, because I'm actually running my Clip Studio on a Mac. So if we ever get a cutout, where it kind of cuts off, it's because my my thing is disconnected, and I just need to reconnect it with my PC. So okay, I know I can't see it, but give me a hands up in the chat if you have decided you want to work on a comic project, got started, and instead of starting with something that's like a page or 2 pages, you started with something that was your massive epic, which is going to be 150 pages long, and then you realized that you bit off a little bit more than you could chew. Because I made that mistake with my very first book, and while we have since put out 12 issues, it has been an experience. There were a lot of things I would have done differently if I had gotten started when I actually knew what I was doing. I might have said, you know what? Nah, it's a bit too much work. So one thing that I found really useful was just learning basic storytelling. It helped me cut out a lot of things. Now, if you're doing a comic that's more of a like one of those comedic comic strips or a slice of life thing, you may not have to worry about that as much. But if you're very plot focused, if you have a lot going on in your story, sitting down and just writing out all your major points to start up with will really help. It helped me a lot. Now, this particular comic, when we initially planned it, it would have been, by our standards of storytelling at the time, about 80 issues, which is getting a bit up there. It's like almost Marvel level number of issues. You having trouble with the video? Just so you know, the video is not really moving yet because I haven't quite done much on this screen. I'm going to be pulling up a few resources as well that I can pass to you after the panel's over. It'll be some templates for comics. I can provide a few different sizes. And then just a few basic links that I think are really helpful to anyone, but comic creators as well. If you, I'll leave links in here, but one of the best ones I can recommend for when it comes to storytelling and plot structure is Save the Cat. You can find the forms online. I believe the website is just savethecat.com. So I'm up here. Just a second. And all of this is just to say, don't not do a comic if you want to do a comic, but it helps to prepare yourself when you're working on a comic. Let's see, where did I put this? Okay. In the meantime, I'll also throw this up here. Why did you not save? Oh, duh. So I'm just gonna stick this over here. Let me know if that's readable. Yeah, Clip Studio Paint. What you'll want to do is probably pick up, I believe the version is called EX. It's the cheaper version. Now, I will say I personally have the more expensive version, which is about $200 and often goes on sale for about $170. And if you want to do like animation, that version is much better. However, if all you want to do is comics, this version works great, and it is frequently on sale, so just keep an eye out. I believe the normal price is around $90, but it will usually go on sale for like half of that. Okay. And the other one, the other site I recommended is Save the Cat. I'll just grab you the link for that. Now, this is specifically for screenwriting, not comic writing, but this has some really good, I don't want to say forms, like templates that you can use to kind of fill out your story and answer all your major points before you get started, which I highly recommend. And screenwriting is a little bit closer to comics than your general prose writing is. I would not suggest going from a prose story to a comic without at least taking a pass at it as a script beforehand. This does not automatically seem to scroll in the chat. Is that... Okay. So I do all my work in Clip Studio. I know a lot of people use a bunch of other programs as well. This one just works the best for me, and it's pretty cheap. That was a direct reference to Save the Cat, the book, which is what that website is also based on. So, in fact, if you watch that episode of She-Ra, it actually covers several of the points that Save the Cat, the book, also goes over. I will say in the industry, it's a pretty well-known book. So one thing that I always start with is obviously the story concept. And go ahead and do this. And just to show you quickly the controls on this, this one actually has a setting just for comics, which is one reason that I like Clip Studio Paint. You can actually set it to any size comic you want, and it will provide the borders and the gutters, so you don't have to worry about it. However, I usually just use the standard for this particular stage. Now, unfortunately, I do a lot of my writing in notebooks, so I can't really show you a bunch of it, but I can take you through some of the process of making a comic. And one thing I used to like to do was get some suggestions. Oh, yeah, sure. Let's see. Oh. Actually, does that work any better? Okay. I'm not used to using all the features of OBS yet. So, and I can't actually see it on the screen I'm drawing on. So, what I usually do at this point, and because I've taught several comic courses before, I actually used to have a 6-week long class that would take you start to finish on producing your own 4 to 6 page comic. I like to kind of get ideas from the group and create a couple of sample thumbnails, sample pages, and just take you through the process on a complete page. So if anyone wants to toss out, some ideas, things they might like to see, I can take you through the process that way. In the meantime, I'll just explain a few of the quick steps. So after the concept, after the initial script, what I usually do is storyboard stage. Now, you do that, I do it in 2 stages. The thumbnail roughs and the full storyboards. And thumbnail roughs are just super tiny, super fast illustrations you do that are primarily to establish the layout. So usually I'll just be working on it, and this may not even be the correct proportions for this, but I'll decide what kind of layout I want for any particular scene. If I have an action scene, I may want more dynamic paneling. Okay, I love that idea. How do you say your name? Campion? Is that a reference to Watership Down? That's what I thought. Okay. So let's say in this instance, we are in fact going with this: a fry cook and a shoe shine who fight crime after hours. So while you're doing the initial process and you have your idea, fry and cook, cook and shoe shine fighting crime. Apologies for my dismal handwriting here. We'll want to go ahead and do this script. In this case, we'll do a sample page. That's cute. I do a lot of action, so I'll go with the first one just because I'm more used to doing action comics. So in this case, you would do the script and you pick your overall story. So I'm going to say, what's something ridiculous someone could steal? I love the channeling the power of the friendship. That is great. Maple syrup and sock. Okay, they'll steal both of those things. Why not? So they're in a mall. The shoe shine stand is over there, and the fast food place is on the other side. And then there's a few stores in between, and one of them sells maple syrup, like genuine Canadian maple syrup. So best kind. And socks. And the socks all have like the Canadian flag on them because, it's a Canadian store. So they're doing their normal work. I love that syrup and socks emporium. Do you normally eat breakfast in your socks? Your Canadian socks? Okay. So I'll probably wind up quickly thumbnailing 2 pages instead of 1, but let's go with they are doing their normal jobs. There's a shout in Canadian from the Canadian maple syrup and socks store with this, hey, it's the syrup and socks emporium. And all of a sudden, a villain emerges obviously carrying syrup and socks. And what should the villain be? What species? So have him be, okay, a badger. I could draw better than this, I swear. Incidentally, one of the stages of making a comic is character design. I really recommend doing that, before you really get started on your comic. So, how about the moose runs the store? Okay, so just to make him a little bit more evil and weird in this scenario, let's have him be a French badger. He's wearing the stereotypically French, you know. Oh yes, maybe he's French Canadian. He's angry that Toronto's getting all the loving. Oh, that's a good reason to be evil. I would be evil if someone mistook me for Pepe Le Pew all the time. So okay, here's our angry French badger smoking like a cigarette. And okay, his weapon is a baguette. There you go. So I think we're all pretty pleased with this guy. And then we do need to establish what our heroes look like. So what about the shoe shiner? Sure, I hear Beaver. What does a shoe shiner outfit look like anyway? Okay, so they wear those little hats, apparently. And then they have rag. Coin because really cheapskates here. And voila. And the reason why you do these character sheets beforehand, well, there's a couple reasons. Firstly, it'll help when you're actually drawing it because then you have consistency. You don't always have to wonder what your character looks like because it will happen. Secondly, this is the point in the process where you get out all your ideas, put them on the page, and say, oh, this is an awesome character. I love the amount of detail. This is a great, cool looking character. And then you start drawing it over and over, and you realize, yeah, you put way too much detail into this, and you have to put it into every single panel of your comic. It's better to get out your creativeness and your most extreme version of the character now instead of later when you're actually drawing it over and over again. Now I kept this one simple because I'm used to making comics, so I know not to to go too overboard. But if I had done it the way that I used to do it and the way a lot of people do it, he would have a lot more detail right now. And then I would simplify him to about this level of detail, which I can then easily reproduce over and over from different angles. At this point, you might also make a model sheet, which is just like the different angles. What does this look like from the back? That kind of thing. However, I don't really need to do that for this guy quite yet because he's only for the sample. Okay, and now for the fry cook. Exactly, conservation detail is great. Oh, both of those things sound good. What do you think, bald eagle or horse? I think we have a tie here. Okay, Baldy's drive-in won me over. So, one of those stupid little, like, how does little hats go like that? Oh. He's tired of people asking to speak to his manager. Thank you. I love doing character designs. I can actually put these up on my Twitter after the fact if you guys want to get a better look at them. Maybe I'll do a more complete version. By the way, my Twitter's on the link there, so if you want to follow me, I actually frequently do raffles and things for free art. Okay, so now we have our intrepid heroes and our evil villain, and our story will be pretty simple. Okay, so they're doing their job, and then the villain emerges laughing in French. Yeah, how does a French laugh go? Is it like ho 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 ho, or that's right, that's right. I'm so French. I can't do a French accent. You'll have to imagine it. Okay, but if anyone could do a French accent, they should join on here, and then they should talk the lines for the evil villain. because I can actually like. I think I can have somebody else join. I don't know. Oh, that was clever. Okay, so now that we have our basic story, I would normally do an actual script. I don't really have a lot of time to do an actual script and work up something clever here. But let's face it, this is mostly based on jokes, so it's fine for this one instance. If you're doing a serious comic, make sure you write a script. Oh, awesome. Okay, is anyone here do a good evil French guy? Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. So when we do the dialogue, you can then you can do the French evil French accent, right? Well, maybe if someone wants to play our intrepid heroes, we could do that too. Okay, so turn this off, do my thumbnail. I'm gonna say you get to see the magical process of my thumbnails. You know what though? Why don't we make the bald eagle female? A little more shapely. Also forgot her tail. And she is no, she doesn't. She just got a little fluff. Okay. So this is actually how I thumbnail things and probably horrify a lot of people. So I've decided for this I want to have an establishing shot. Oh, you. Okay. There you go. Obviously, you know, birds need some beak lipstick. So I'm going to do an establishing shot here, which will be, you know, here's, let's say this is the mall, like in perspective, and I'm just not going to. And here's the fry cook place, and here's the, you know, the Emporium with, you know, moose imagery, maybe moose mannequins. I'll do it better in the actual the actual page. And then we see our shoe shine coming over and super tired. And then the Eagles hands him a basket of fries because they're buddies. Also, I love the name Baldina, so. And then, you know, she says, hey, you know, it's been pretty quiet. It's kind of nice. And then, and he eats fries. My pictures are so good. And then they hear a sound coming from over there, and it is evil French laugh. French laugh. Yeah. I have had poutine. It's even better with fresh cheese curds. So yes, they hear evil French laugh. That can probably not bode well. And then the villain reveal out of the emporium here. We laughed, but there was actually a thing in the news a while back about someone being arrested for stealing, I think, $18 million worth of syrup. So, so this end of the store is like all syrup bottles. And, this big Canadian flag. And then this end of the store is all cute novelty socks. And here's the cashier. Yep, that's the one. And then there's a little bit of background just kind of in there. And then the villain. And there you go. And then more French laughter because and then our intrepid heroes, they look at each other. And then they rush to change into their superhero outfits. But the eagle just keeps hers under the counter because she's smart. She knows this kind of stuff happens all the time. You don't work fast food and not expect, the occasional French villain wielding a baguette. Sure, there's a phone booth. No, there's a photo booth. Even better. And then the villain's like really chuckling it up over here. And it's like, what's a good evil monologue that he could be having in French? It is something you learn over time. There's actually a few things that I can run over about when certain things are useful, the impression that things create. Let me quickly do this. Voice telling him to stop. Fiend. And then get the big hero shot. Yeah, turns out our heroes are really the villains. Hero. Okay, so now we have 3 panels leading up to the introduction of our heroes. And then at this point, I would just check and see, is this the layout I want? Do I get the angles I want? In this case, I do actually kind of like this for the most part. So what I would do at that point is go ahead and take my panels, starting with the first page. Put them into my layout. This way I make sure they actually fit. This layout is done to the same layout as my comic. So if I take one of these pages and I blow it up into the actual comic page, it will be exactly the same size and ratio. If you do your own layouts for the comic pages where it's a non-standard size, and the standard sizes for comic in the US is 6.625 by 10.25. That is bring in here. That is the standard US comic size. So when you go into a comic shop, you see a comic that is basically standard. And that is what this particular template is sized for. And if anyone wants any of these templates, I can also add that up, but put a link up to on my Twitter so that people can work with it. I had to make my own, mostly because every place I could find that offered templates wanted to charge money for a template pack. Quartz, I can actually get you the settings for the US comic with the bleed and trim on it in Manga Studio. After the panel, just poke me, remind me, and I can actually get you all that, because you have to set it manually. It doesn't have the US comic size in Clip Studio, but I can get that all that for you. Okay, at this point, I would go ahead and start making a slightly more detailed version. Kind of everything here is like really sketchy, so I would go ahead and kind of clean it up a little bit, get ready to go into my full-size page. What I normally do is I'll do the lines here for the panel breakout on a separate layer for my characters, just in case I need to tweak or move anything around. And then comic tip number 86, use reference. So I'm just looking up a mall real quick. I am going to shamelessly steal what a mall looks like from a comic, from the internets. Thanks, internets. If I were going to actually be doing like a real comic, I would also put in my perspective grid. If you have Clip Studio, you can it actually has a tool specifically for perspective grids. It is really great. I have not mastered it, so I don't use it that often, but it's pretty useful. I use it whenever I need to make straight lines. So in this case, we'll have the shoe shine stands like have a little chair and they're kind of raised up. And shoe shine guys here. Baldina's here. Cash register's here. And here is where the references come in handy. Goes over and talking to Baldina. We need a name for this guy. He says, hey, it's good to see you. I'd like some of those poutines. Yeah, it Clip Studio is really cheap. And yeah, I find that getting a lot of things out of the way early on in the process will help. Like, let's say I did this and I started doing all my roughs on this page, and then I found I really just don't like the angle at all. I want to change it. It is much better to do it now than after you've penciled it, especially after you've inked it. The other thing that's good to note is, in one area where I always have a problem, making sure you leave room for dialogue bubbles. So there we go. Now I'm going to put in my fake dialogue bubble. Nice. Okay, and now can I just say that Baldina is adorable? Paper hat. Yeah, Baldina is amazed that her day has gone without too much problems. Only had to deal with a couple of Karens. Beaverly's enjoying those up until the whole fill-in arrival thing. Not enough birds. I would rough that in too. In this case, there actually would be. You just got to figure out what it is. What is an explosion-y sound, but more French? So in this case, my French explosion needs a little bit more space to be French and explosion-y. So I'm just gonna quickly. There we go. Now it has a bit more space to be properly French. And that's not dynamic enough, so I'm gonna make my le boom a bit more like this. Oh, I love that one. And there we have what I would consider to be a more clean layout. At this point, I would normally take it and go ahead and put it in the actual page. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to assemble a page in Clip Studio because it has a few tools that are really useful. These things all apply in normal, in other programs as well. I can show you a few ways to deal with things in that. So first off, I'm going to remove all that. This is my page template. This one was actually set up by Clip Studio. That's why it has all these lines on it. For the purposes of this, anything inside this line here is considered to be safe. So if you have text, things like that, you want to make sure that it's inside the line. You have plenty of bleed. However, art should go all the way past these lines. Now with comics, it's not usually as huge of a deal because you'll have gutters. So usually your art isn't going to go too far past a certain point anyway. So in this case, I'll go ahead and paste this into the window. Oh, I forgot a thing, which is, let's merge this. And okay, so now I can use this as my guide. Oh, I need another copy. As you can see, it should fit pretty close. I actually didn't give myself any gutter room. And then in this studio, I will go ahead and Clip Studio. I will go ahead and show you how you do panels in Clip Studio. Then I'll show you another method too. I actually love Sci. It's one of my favorite programs for inking. It does not work on my iPad, which makes it not as great for that. If you have Sci, I recommend doing your layouts in another program first, and then kind of taking them over to Sci for when you do the art. So Clip Studio has a tool, and I don't know how well you can see it here. Sci 2 actually has lettering capabilities from what I've heard. If you have Sci 1, you can actually use your Sci 1 code in Sci 2 to use it. So this has a tool, and you'll see it right here. It's called Frame Border. It looks, is it not? I haven't used it for that. It looks like a little set of comic panels. And what you do is you go in, you outline where you want your panel to be. If you have Snap to on your thing, it will automatically snap to your borders. And what it does is it creates a masked layer that you can draw in, and it won't go past the edges of it. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is do one for each section of the comic. Now for this one, I'm actually going to cheat. This also has an option to split a panel called Cut Frame Border. And I'm going to move my my copy up here up top so I can see where the panels are. And then I'm going to split this frame border right here. Made 2 frames. And then I work within the frames when I'm doing my my penciling and inking. And as you see, it'll focus on whichever frame that you've selected. So in that case, I would do that. I would do my pencils within the program here. And so on. Trying to remember, does this panel go until 10:30 or does it go until 10? Okay, good. I was worried. There's still quite a lot about panels and comics in general that I wanted to make sure to mention to everyone. And if anyone has any questions, by all means, go ahead and ask them in the window. So I hope you're all entertained and find this informative. And just as a quick plug, if you like furry comics, be sure to check out the site listed on there, ringtailcafe.com. It actually has some of the comics I've worked on. You get to see my really old stuff before I learned how to do comics. Learning experience. One thing I can say about comics, the big temptation a lot of people run into is, well, one of two things: either to rush off and just start and do everything without any sort of planning, which is bad. And then the other group, which is people who decide they want to do a comic, but then they don't actually start because they're not confident in their ability to do a comic yet. And what I can say is, doing a comic is the best way to learn how to do comics. If you guys are interested, I can actually come in at some point and do something like just a general chat session on on planning out stories and doing uh, basic like story pacing, that kind of thing, because it's actually some of what I do. I actually do that for some other creators. Right, they give me a story concept, and I help them um, kind of break that concept into a more finished piece that they can use. Because I know a lot of artists who are good artists, but they have a lot more trouble with working their head around the storyline and the pacing and all that good stuff. I know there's a way to do nested panels. Let me see if I can remember. Oh, that's actually on the right tool for that. Yeah. And just so you know, the panels don't have to be straight line. Like they don't have to be like if I want to have a real weird random panel like this, I could do that. And if I wanted to have one where it's strictly drawn, like weird wobbly, like which could also help. Like if I ever had one where um, let's say I wanted to have a breakout panel here. Ignore my very badly drawn lines. You can see that I can make a panel in any shape. The bigger question that I think is good to know about is when it comes to things that overlap your panels. Like let's say you have I'm just moving this to a different location. So let's say we actually had like a character breaking out of this panel and making French noises. Here he is with his baguette. Okay, so let's say we wanted to do that, right? And then we go to our panel we've done, the breakout panel. As you see, if I draw outside, if I draw in the frame, it doesn't actually like go out of the panel. And that the fact is, it actually does. It's got a mask layer on, so if I were to turn off this mask layer, disable the mask, you can see that you know it actually does go beyond that. The mask just covers it up. So what you might do at this stage, turn off the mask, go ahead and like ink or pencil your character. So I'm gonna ink him in his. Let's see, little French eyebrows. Please ignore my really awful inking job on this guy. So, okay. Here I've gone ahead and inked him. And he's in a turtleneck. With short sleeves and stripes, I guess. It's stereotypical, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Someone's gonna come in here while I'm doing this, and they're gonna wonder what the hell is going on. Are you a new person to the panel? Are you wondering what the hell is going on? Okay, good. Okay. So in this instance, I got my evil French badger and his evil French baguette. And if I were to turn my thing back on, you wouldn't be able to see it. You'd be like, oh, it's like he's cut off. Well, you can actually select this as an object. Now keep in mind, I'm not like super good at the particular object selection tool, but I'm just showing you. Come on. But I could actually pull it out around the character so that he sticks out. And there's a few other techniques. I've not done a lot of breakout panels in this program. But I do believe there's actually a technique where you can just select the character and use it to break out the actual panel using the object tool. I can look at the tutorial I was looking at for specifically panels in Clip Studio Paint and kind of pass it to you guys if you want. However, for the most part, the panel tool is just nice in general. And, well, this badger, he doesn't belong here. So. So when it comes to the question of when do you start and what do you start with, I would say it depends on what your strongest and weakest areas are. Like, are you more into like one of the easiest types of comics is your basic 3-panel like joke comics. I don't know if anyone here reads the comic Fox Dad, but that's the kind of incidentally, we actually published Fox Dad the comic at Ringtail Cafe. That's the main reason I know it, because I actually talked to Fuzztone, who creates the comic, and they are much better than me at comedic timing. My specialty is make action and I blow stuff up. I'm like the furry equivalent of Michael Bay, but not as awful. So I'm going to show you a page in a comic that I've been working on. You can see here it is. The layout's off. It's just the initial storyboard in here. And then I went in and I added the panels. My panels are a little out of order here. And each panel, go ahead and zoom here. I can have the multiple layers in it. And I do everything on a different layer. That is very important, because all it takes is one little thing that gets blended down into a layer that you have that it's not meant to be on, and then it becomes really hard to fix. So, for example, here you can see that the lines are on a different layer than the fill. I don't want to combine these. If I combine them, it'd make it hard to edit them. So once I have everything on my distinct layers, I go through, I ink my backgrounds on a separate layer, I ink my characters on a separate layer. And all of that just gives me the max amount of freedom to move things around, to make edits. Because you always think, hey, this is going to be perfect the first time out of the gate. And by kind of working ahead and doing your layouts and doing your storyboards, you're helping yourself to make sure you're not going to have a ton of edits. But there will always be times when you have to change something to make it work. In this case, I tried to maximize and make sure that I wouldn't have too many things that didn't fit, or that would get in the way later on, which is why I initially had, like, here's my dialogue bubbles. Oh, I love those. Okay. This is a thing that I would really love to do more of. And I know a trick in this particular program to do that. And I assume you're talking about the toner dots, right? Like you'd see in, yeah. Okay, this is another reason I recommend this program, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Okay, so here I'm just going to go ahead and make a quick illustration so I can demonstrate my point. Okay, so here I'm making a character, and let's say, yeah, it's a dog. They're just easy. How many people here are dogs? Canines of some kind? Okay, so now I have this character. Let's say I want to have a nice, like, gradient in the background. I'm just going to go ahead and like do my lines here, or some kind of a panel. Oh, that line's too thick. And I'm just gonna to ink this real quick because it works a little better that way. I don't know what's with this expression. It's not quite the DreamWorks face. Incidentally, I am open for commissions. It will look better than this DreamWorks face canine. To be fair, dear Mod, I also should not be trusted with power tools. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. So I have this line here to cut off. Also, I don't know if any of you have seen it on the schedule, but I actually have an open sketch panel tomorrow, and I'll be taking a sketch. I'll be taking some sketch concepts and just doing free art for people and chatting and basically promoting my stuff, but also free art. So my character's actually half coyote. Do my cheating method of, yeah, I did not finish filling in my lines. I bet you run into that a lot too, right? Select tool, and then all of a sudden you realize you didn't fill in all your lines. The select tool always knows. Yeah, people just give sketch requests. I'll take them down and then do them in the order I get them. And if someone is following me on Twitter, I'll move them to the top of my list because, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fill this in real quick. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and make the toner, which you were talking about. So what I'll do for that is I'll make a separate layer, and then if you go to the gradient tool here, it actually has a tool called Manga Gradient. And I just take my gradient and I go, and it looks like a normal gradient, right? So what you do at this point is you go up to your gradient layer. There it is. And then you pick, thanks. You pick what type of effect you want. In this case, I made it the stippling. If you reduce the frequency, it makes the dots bigger. And you can play with things like density. And then they have different settings here, like I could make the thing a circle, or I could make it like these tiny flowers or ninja stars, or pretty much anything like that. I know, right? The biggest trouble with this tool is that the frequency only goes down to a certain amount. I actually prefer dots. So. And then there's also a secondary thing you can do, which is if you go into it, make a new layer, and then you clip it. That's this little thing here. And what clipping does is it attaches it to the layer below so that it won't show up anywhere where and the stuff on the layer below is not. So in that case, I could take it and then take like, I don't know, it's like bright orange, bright red, orange, and then just flood fill this layer, right? And now all my dots are orange. And then if you want to get even more technical, I could take my background here, go ahead and highlight it, right? This is where I want my background. And then I'll fill my background in with a color, like say this light green, just so I can see it. Now it looks pretty awful right here. Fanta vibes, nice. And then I can clip my dots layer to it. Oh, hold on. So I can clip my dots layer to it, and now my dots show up in this. But before I do that, I realized what my problem was here. My orange layer is also clipped to my bottom layer. So I'm going to use a different technique for that, which is I'm going to lock this layer. And while we lock the layer, well, there is a technique, and I've used it. Hold on. It's been a while. In any case, I can also pass you info on that too. It's really easy. Manga Studio has a lot of features that are useful for that kind of thing. If I believe it's possible to do something like that without a gradient fill tool. Like if I wanted to make this guy kind of dotty, I could do that. Filling in. Let's say I wanted to do just his hair. There's actually a tool here. It is layer, tone. And then you can do the same thing in the tone function. There we go. So I'm going to turn off, make this white again. And if you can zoom in, you can actually see that certain parts are actually now speckled. And that's if you want to create something that's a little bit more manga-esque. You can change the frequency to make it darker. You can change the size to make it to change like the texture. It's really easy to use. It's a little bit of a learning curve with figuring out where the tools are, but I have plenty of tutorials on that if you want to learn just how to use the program. Now, the last stage here of making your comic, since you've got everything all laid out, and once you've got everything inked and colored, which is a different skill set. I mean, you can watch all kinds of things on coloring. I recommend it. But once all that's in place, the important part is to make sure that you get all your lettering in there the way you want. In this case, I did my different lettering bubbles for the character dialogue. Clip Studio Paint actually has a pretty big assortment of text tools. I need to put it on a layer that's above my boxes. There we go. Can I make my text white? Is that what's wrong? Yep, it's white. Well, don't make your text white if your background is also white. So, blah, 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 here's my text. A few little things to consider. Mine are all square text bubbles because it's kind of a voiceover. But if you have round bubbles, let's say here's a rounded balloon. Now I want my text to be. I'll show you on a different layer. If you have a rounded bubble like this, you want to make sure that your text is centered. And that you kind of take your text and you make sure that it all fits within the shape you're going for the bubble, so that you don't have a lot of extra space. In this case, I have a lot of text, so I would then go in and kind of fiddle around with it and see where I want to compress. And this can take a lot of fiddling around. You may want to kind of put your text in the thing and just kind of see where it can fit best in the bubble. Like in this case, this might be as good as I can get. That way, when you do the bubble, because the bubble isn't actually usually a circle, it will go around your text. I'm just doing this as a demonstration. You don't want to have too much white space around the text, like here and here and here. You want to have kind of a minimum of white space. The last thing to consider is if you're posting online. If you're posting online, you'll want to go ahead and work. When you're doing the actual art, do the work at a high resolution. Do it at 300 dpi or higher. And then when you go to post it online, that is when you reduce the resolution on your image for your online version. That way, if you ever decide you want to do a print version of your story, you then have a high-res version that you can print. I've seen some people who no longer have a high-res version or never had a high-res version of webcomics, and then they could never print anything with it. And you never know when people will want to buy a print copy. For industry standards, you're looking at about 22 pages per issue for an individual comic, like a floppy book. But those aren't considered to be very high value. You probably want to wait until you have 40 or more pages and then do a bound, of what they call a perfect bound graphic novel. That's a much better value for customers and a much better value for your amount of time you're putting into it. If you come, send me questions on my Twitter or just contact me, outside of this because I'm running out of time. If you want to ask me about like places where to put up comics, I actually have a list of places that are recommended where you can put up your comics, as well as sites like FA and your own personal site and your Twitter. There's other sites like what's called Tapas. I believe it's tapas.io, which is a good place for hosting comics. If you have one little different format, you might have to reformat to fit. But there's also Webtoons. That's another good site. Webtoons is formatted specifically for mobile devices like phones. So they actually have different templates that you might want to look at if you're going to be doing a comic on Webtoons. The other advice I have for you is consistency is key to building a readership. What you want to do and what I normally do is, example here. Oh. Put a white layer in. Go ahead and do several pages all at once. Okay. In this instance, I actually did I did 22 pages of a book, all in storyboards in one go, and that's the first half of my first chapter. And then after doing the first half of the first chapter, I went to do the inks, the colors, everything, before I started uploading anything online. Usually you want to upload once a week if you can. If you can't upload once a week, any consistent schedule is better than just random uploads. And you'll want to include on your pages, I don't have it on mine yet, include your website or location where you can be found on the bottom of your comic. Because if someone steals it, which is frankly very common in the furry fandom, I found my site, like stuff on theft sites before. That way, people can at least, if they're going to steal it and read it, still find your stuff. Did anyone have any other questions? Well, I will say I'm always open to questions. You can feel free to message me on Twitter. Um, I would say you could also message me on FA, but I almost never post there, um, just because I haven't had very much luck getting a following on FA. I have like 40 followers. My Twitter is in there. I can actually paste it if that's okay. Just a sec. Right there. That's my Twitter. And if you do want to, consider picking up a copy of any of the books I've worked on, not the first issue, please. You can find them here. And if anyone has any issues, anything they're specifically working on, and you just want to show it to me, get some help with like formatting, get help with anything like that, I'm always happy to offer help when I have time. I also do professional services for helping with your story, your layouts, that kind of stuff like that. Um, I do comic commissions on occasion if anyone's interested in that kind of thing. So you can present me with your idea at any stage of completion, and I can take it and actually make a finished comic. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I can get this to zoom in. So here's what you'll want to put. And that should be approximately US comic size. When you go to do it, like if you were to go to print it through a place, a lot of places have slightly different um, standards or settings for the bleed and gutters and stuff. At that point, that's why you have a high resolution image. You can usually tweak and resize to fit within um, whatever template you're having to deal with for the printer. No problem. because I still have about 20 minutes. So I think I'm going to draw more of Baldina. That's right. Yeah, I actually think I will. So if you happen to be following my Twitter and you want to see the finished pages, I'll be working on those over the weekend. And if you're interested, I have a couple more art panels tomorrow. One is on furry anatomy. It's going to cover basic body anatomy, a lot of areas people tend to have problems with, like feet and paws, as well as just general how to build a body with shapes to make it more simplistic. Who could say no to this face? Yes. Can you just hop on? Do me your best like evil French guy laugh. Come on. If you want to record me an evil French guy laugh, I'll actually animate it. Him doing the laugh. 'Cause I love doing animations. go. And I'll post this on my Twitter too. I mean, honestly, Baldina is great waifu material. And she's a superhero. And I think that's about it. I'll do a colored version of her on my Twitter. So thanks everyone for dropping in. I hope this was very informative for y'all. And if you want to stop in, we actually have a store, and I'm going to be streaming artwork tomorrow during the day in between my panels. Thank you for running this. Really appreciate it. And as I said, I'm pretty open. If you want to just contact me on Twitter, ask me any questions, feel free. And I'm going to go ahead and log off now. So thank you all so much.